Welcome to the SMIRK podcast. Hello and welcome to episode number 3 of the SMIRK podcast. In this episode, I'm sitting down with the absolute legend that is Renee Gartner. Renee has a very impressive career in sports media, spanning TV and radio. She can also boast to stepping inside the ring as a professional boxer. We sat down and had a great chat. We talked about her struggle with depression from a young age and how she dealt with that in her career in sports media, where you always have to, have that positive side, out front and bring that positivity to the camera or the radio or whatever role she was doing at the time. We talked about her journey to get into the ring as a professional boxer, and she's talked about the tools, tips, and some of the lifestyle changes she has made along the way to help her deal with her depression. It was a really great chat. We had a lot of fun doing this one. Renee is an absolute legend, but we were also joined by a bit of an unwanted guest. There was Gartner outside using the podcaster's nightmare. He had the leaf blower going outside, so that is in the background on and off throughout the podcast. It's very annoying to have it in the background, but I hope you can stick with it because we did have a great chat and there's some great insights in there from Renee, so hope you enjoy it. Renee Gartner, thanks a million for having me over.
No, pleasure. It's great to have you on my floor
And having a chat. I know, I was expecting at least chairs for this interview.
COVID's been tough,
but the floor is good.
Yes.
So I have to say I didn't, when I reached out to you on Instagram, I didn't
DM slide.
actually know your story too well.
Right, okay.
I knew that you were a professional boxer, which I thought was awesome, and I knew that you'd done a lot of work with mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So I really wanted to reach out to you because I thought it'd be a great one to start to like get one under the belt over here, because you seem like an absolute legend. But then I listened to your when I was doing a bit of research and stuff. I listened to your podcast with the Imperfectly Perfect campaign.
Yeah.
And listening to that, I was just like, wow, it's a pretty mad story.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah. And the word that kind of kept coming into my mind, because I was thinking about how I'm going to introduce the podcast and stuff.
Sure.
And the word that kept coming up, I was just like, absolute warrior.
Oh, wow.
So,
thank you.
Like, especially because you're a professional boxer.
Yeah.
And you obviously, fight in the ring. And, all the battles in your personal life and all the stuff you've overcome.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are like that, though. I think there's a lot of battles that people sort of get faced and they overcome. And I think the one thing that I sort of spoke about in the story, like when, and we'll probably get to where my story sort of went, but when I spoke about it, everyone just kept saying, "Oh, that's so courageous," or "That's so brave," or "There's so this, that, and the other." And but in my head, brave and courageous should be reserved for people that go into battle and daily stuff like that. And that was a big reason why I wanted to help break the stigma, because it shouldn't be brave or courageous to talk about mental health. So what you're doing in sharing the stories from Ireland all the way over here to Australia with your llama/kangaroo, it's going to break down that sort of stigma where we don't have to be brave to have these conversations, and it should be just as casual as asking what you did on the weekend. Yeah,
it's funny that you say that, because I had that so many times as well, because I back home the west of Ireland is like mental health is not really talked about. It is now, which is very good. Like, even I've been over here 2 years.
Wow.
And the amount of work that's going on there now.
And your Irish accent's completely gone.
Do you think so?
Yeah. So Aussie.
Can I mind? But like, there's nothing at home.
Yeah.
And when I started it up, like, I was on the radio and stuff talking about it, and people were saying that to me. It's like, good on you, you're so courageous.
Yeah.
And like, well done. And it's like, this is the easy part.
Yeah.
Like, talking about it is the easy part.
Yeah.
It's the struggle when you're actually going through it.
Yeah.
Is hard. So when people say you're courageous, I'm like, it's so easy to just have the conversation and talk about it.
Well, we say it's easy to have the conversation, but like, I know when I first was kind of going through it, I think because you're so confused and you don't really. I think a lot with my side of things, I was really confused, and I had a roof over my head. I had parents and family that even if we have the biggest fights, you can't hang up the phone without saying I love you, and You know, I had a beautiful home. I had, you know, sporting career that I was working on. I was good at, like, no, I wasn't great at school, but like I was okay at school, and so I didn't really understand why I was feeling the way I was. Like, to me, in what I learned in my experience was that that was reserved to people that couldn't put food on the table, or they had bad family environments at home, and so that's why I think I kind of fought it for so long. So it's just like, well, I'm not allowed to feel like this because I tick all the other boxes. So that means this isn't allowed. So I've just got to put a front on and just, you know, pull the socks up and sort of keep going. Yeah. So I think now we're a lot luckier, I think, because, you know, people like you and I, and then there's so many other people that I know continue to talk about it, that I now understand it a hell of a lot more. And so it sort of made it easier for me to be able to reach out when I am not great, because now my friends and family also understand that it's not because, you know, I'm not upset because I stubbed a toe. You know, I'm upset because of the confused mind.
Do you think, I've said this before, that I think the real breaking point for me in is getting that information. When you actually so I reached out to my auntie as a counsellor. So I reached out to her, and she was kind of bringing me up to speed on what was actually going on in the head with anxiety and all that. And the way she had spoken about it just was like, it's like a light bulb moment, but it's not like everything's solved. It's just, you're at the start, you know, you're at the start of your journey. But to get that information, it's like, bloody hell. It's like, this makes sense.
It kind of feels like, the best way I explain it is, if you've gone into AirPods, you probably won't understand this. So any kids that have just avoided the fact that normal Apple earpieces, you'd wind them up perfectly and you'd stick them in your pocket. So they're all like, you know, the perfect little circle around your finger. You stick in your pocket and you bring it out, and it's like a little fairy went in and just went, like, tied it up into like a Rubik's Cube. So you pull it out, and like, to me, that was my brain. Was like, it was perfect when I put it in my pocket. I pulled it out and like absolute shit fight. And then you'd get frustrated, like, because the more you yank at it and like speedily try and unwind it and try and fix it really quickly, the more knotted up it gets, the more tighter and the harder it gets, the more frustrated you then get. Where if you take the time to sort of unravel it and work out where it's looped up and how to unloop it that way, you know, you're eventually going to end up with your earphones untangled, and you're going to be happier, pop in your ears, and away you go. But unless you take the time to understand where your mind and where your sort of brain and feelings are kind of knotted up at the time, then, you know, you're going to be rushed into thinking things, and your frustration levels are going to be heightened as well.
So where did the journey start for you? Or how far do you want to go back?
The twinkle in the eye between mum and dad? No. You did say we could talk about anything on this show. No.
It's not.
No, I don't know. I guess for me, I probably started noticing it more as like a 13-year-old girl, and I talk about it a lot because, do you have sisters?
I have 3, yeah.
3 sisters, okay. So, and at 13, or around that age group when they're going through that sort of maturity level, like puberty and whatnot, like, did you see how they change from like an angelic sister into a devil in like the space of that for no reason? Like,
so I have an older one who I can't really remember too much. No, but I had another one who was so Abigail. Who's she's 21 now, and she was a little tomboy. A complete and utter tomboy. Like, I mean, like, she'd always have a little penknife in her pocket. And she's always
like, and this is why he's not going to tell me. Sorry about it.
She was always sharpening like sticks and stuff. She's such a little tomboy, but she turned like from being that into like a woman. And like, it was such a weird transition to see. So like, I obviously knew she was struggling, you know, with that mix. But it definitely. That age for everyone is just...
it's guys and girls. But I guess, like, for me, that was probably where I moved from. I was living in Sydney, so I grew up in Sydney, in New South Wales in Australia, and then our family moved up to Queensland, and at 13, like, moving a girl who's quite settled in her friends group, and, you know, sort of doing all that sort of thing. And then, you know, you're going through those changes as a female, so... so comfortable on the floor, isn't it?
Just getting the
Yeah, it was kind of like all the feelings that I had with that was just amplified with all of a sudden now I was starting to have a bit of depression and anxiety sort of creeping in. So when that was happening, it was always blamed on the fact that I'd moved, or the fact that I'd changed friends group, or the fact that you're a woman, you're becoming a woman. So then again, I was just like, okay, well that's what it is, but it still doesn't make sense. So sort of kept going with that, and it sort of got worse and worse. And I think around high school, that's like year 12, like 17, 18, I started really experiencing a lot with it. And I actually I went to a GP to speak about it, and she was like, she'd been my GP for many, many years. So I had a really easy conversational sort of relationship with her. Where I think a lot of people struggle to have that first opening conversation to start with. And yeah, she was just like, look, I think it's depression, and put me on first lot of antidepressants that I've sort of been on, and I was on them for quite a while. But as I sort of kept getting older, mine got worse and worse, and she's like, okay, so we need to change it. So it was kind of, I think because it was so early at the stage of people understanding it, they just kind of throw, and this is no disrespect at all to the doctors that I had at the time, but I was never even seeing a psych at like 17 or 18.
I was just going to ask, was there no mention of a counsellor or anything before that?
Yeah, this was all through GP. And we had kind of like a counsellor relationship. I was able to be quite open with chats with her, but yeah, again, like they were just giving things out, which is, scary, because it's the chemical that you're putting into your brain. And I know a lot of people do that on the weekends, but it's a very different chemical that changes, like, mental behaviours and personality and a lot of things. So so as I got older, I think it probably wasn't until a little bit later on in life, my highs were really high and my lows were really, really low, and they sort of went, oh, well, you've got bipolar. But I wasn't bipolar to a true degree. Like if you read up what it is, it's, someone who drives really fast to the point where they're reckless, or they go and spend to a reckless nature, or bits and pieces. And I wasn't that, but I would walk in the room and I'd be like 1,000 miles an hour, like, and just like really excitable, like a child that you just wanted to sit down and just be like, and I'd be like, no.
Yeah, just bouncing around.
Yeah, but my lows were literally me not leaving my room for like 2-3 days, and like I get migraines normally, but I would use a migraine as an excuse to not communicate with people and shut off for a couple of days. So I wasn't getting them probably as frequently as people thought, or I would have a migraine and then the depression that followed after that would then sort of be, I guess, greater. And again, I'd just shut off. And because I was there was days where I worked in media, so I'd have to be on camera, or I'd have to be looking after other people to put them on camera. I had to put this like mask on and be like walk in the room and be even happier and hyper, and on a day where I literally didn't feel like getting out of bed, so that people had no idea. Like I just felt like a fraud, but I also didn't want anyone to have any idea.
Especially when you're on the camera. Like, you can't.
No, you can't, and it's like it's ridiculous, isn't it?
There can't be any sadness coming.
No, you can't be like, so we just won the game.
Yeah, sorry, having a bit of a bad day, guys.
Having a bad day. If someone can just, I don't know, just cuddle me.
Yeah, it's actually, you have to put on that mask of upbeat all the time.
Yeah, and then because I did that, a lot of people just always expected it from me. So if I wasn't like that, instead of it being nurtured, like, are you okay? Do you want to talk about it? Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I don't know. Well, then fucking get over it. Excuse my language. But that's the way it was. Like, Aussies were just like, get on with it.
Look at you, you have a good job, you have good.
Everything's, 100%.
Everything's lined up for you.
Yeah, it was like a script that they read. What's wrong with you? You've got a family that loves you, you've got a roof over your head. Like, did you eat today? You ate today. That's great. Did you have a beer? Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, then you should be fine. You're like,
you've got everything you need.
Yeah. So yeah, and then because you do that on those days where you do feel like completely out of it, you exhaust yourself even further. So then the days that followed that, I'd get in my car and either bawl my eyes out as soon as I got in the car, or I'd get home and then just be, get home and not want to talk to anyone again. I'd switch off and everybody like, oh, what's wrong with you?
But that's the thing is, it's not that you don't want to talk to anyone, it's you don't understand it yourself. So you can't put it into words to have the chat with someone. So it's like, you have no, it's almost like you have no choice but to, how do you start the conversation?
Yeah.
Because I know I said earlier it's an easy conversation to have.
Yeah.
It's an easy conversation to have once you're clued in on it, and once you have all the information.
Yeah.
When you're struggling with it, it's like, how do you start a conversation about something you don't even know how to describe?
And I think most people, like, you kind of surround yourself by pretty similar sort of people to you. Like, you don't, I have a no dickhead policy, like, although I'm a bit of a dickhead sometimes, but in a different sort of realm. So, you know, I have a lot of caring people around me. I have a lot of loving people around me. But I think it's in our nature to try and fix a lot of the time. So when you are feeling shitty, you want to try and fix yourself, and you already can't fix yourself because you don't know how to articulate it, and you don't know how to explain. You know, for me, the best way I can now articulate it to people is that when I'm feeling that level of depression, it's like someone's come and tapped me up on the shoulder and gone, "Oh, FYI, everyone you know and love is dead." Like, that's the level of angst or despair, you know, hurt that I feel on a whim, like off nothing. Like, to me, that's the only way I can explain it. So when someone asks me what's wrong, their general nature is like, what's wrong, because we want to fix you. And when you're like, I was fine 2 seconds ago and I'm not now, so I can't explain it, and I know you want to fix the problem, but I can't fix you fixing it. So, and then you just get this like,
because you don't. It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
Like, the frustration that builds up in that state, and it transfers into other parts of your life then.
Yeah.
And it, like, you know, can transfer into like anger, and you can start having the outbursts of other people.
Yeah.
Like, that's happened with me, where I'm like thinking, geez, I've not been the nicest person here today. And then you're like, bloody hell, like. I'm taking my frustration out on other people. So it's it's a very hard thing to deal with.
How did you find it with your group of friends when your first conversations around this sort of stuff started happening? Like, when did you feel like you finally had a bit more of an understanding from those people around you?
It's crazy. I don't think I've actually had I've had conversations with them. They all know what's going on, because I was very public with it, so I kind of figured it out myself. Yeah. To where I was at a point where I could talk to my friends about it. Yeah. A couple of months later, I had started up the clothing brand. Right. And I started up the clothing brand, and I started talking about it, and I started to try and spread the message. Yeah. So they were kind of brought up to speed through that, I think. Because they all knew, like, I would have. My friends knew that. So when I was in New York, I was in New York City. I'm flipping 23, 24. Like, living in this amazing city, and was just so depressed and had such anxiety. And they obviously knew. They knew what something's going on, because, like, I'm normally a really kind of laid back, just have a laugh, up for fun. Yeah. And when I'm anxious and depressed, I can hardly hold a conversation with people. Yeah. And so they all knew definitely what was going on. And I obviously couldn't express that to them. Yeah. And they knew that I was talking to my auntie, and I'd gone to the doctor, and I'd gone, like, I used to call it, I'm heading off to the magician. Because I got a counselor. Yeah. I was like, right, lads, heading off to the music. Can't say the word. Magician. So I used to tell them that I was going after that. So, like, I didn't want any stigma around it. I just wanted to have a laugh with it. I was like, yeah, lads, and, you know, just I'm getting this sorted. It is what it is. I'll figure it out.
Going to the sorcerer.
yeah. So I got on antidepressants as well, and anti-anxiety medication, which I used to call the happy pills. Yeah. So I'd be taking. So they knew that all that was going on. Yeah. But I wasn't really at a stage of really explaining it to them right then. Yeah. But when I got home and I started up the clothing brand, and I was talking to more people, I got a lot better at talking about it and explaining it. So I think they all kind of would have seen that through what we were doing, because it was pretty public. Yeah. Well, it was public to as many people as we could get it to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly like it wasn't cutting edge news, like, but I was trying to push the message out as far as I could, especially in the west of Ireland, to try and get it out. So I don't know. Yeah, I have conversations with them all the time about it now.
Yeah.
Probably I'm like that as well, where I'm a bit of a fixer.
Yeah.
You know, as soon as I hear my friends are feeling great or something, you're like, you try your best to help them.
Yeah.
But you need to learn how to listen, which is I'm getting a lot better at. And instead of trying to shove like information stuff down people's throats.
So this is what you've got to do. You've got to go to the GP, then you've got to go to this. You've got to book this. You've got to take that. You've got to go exercise. I think that actually makes people really anxious as well too. Like, it is as amazing it is that we have all these steps that people are now talking about mindfulness and looking after your mental health and. I still think a lot of those steps for people who get to the situations, and I can't speak for you, like even for me, I'm like, there's days where, even now that I take happy pills, I still don't feel like going for a walk is going to make me feel better that day. And then I get really frustrated because I'm like, no, but that's what I should be doing to make myself feel better. I should get up and get outside and get some vitamin D. I should get out in the sun. I should go and exercise because that's going to make me feel better. And so then I get a lot more angst surrounded by that. So it's taken me a while, but now I sit back and go, all right, today you don't have to go for a walk. Like, if today is your recharge day where you sit on the couch or sit on the floor, or I said, just if at least today, can you get up and make your bed? Yeah. Like, so, and sometimes making your bed and getting out of bed is like one of the hardest things that you have to do. And as soon as you've done that, you look back at your bed and you're like, all right, well, I've achieved something. And it could be the only thing you achieve today, but it's something so small. And that sense of achievement is what I guess they're talking about when they're saying you need to get out and move to make yourself feel better. Yeah. It's, ticking something off small so you feel like you are able to do something. Yeah. Because it's that burden, that weight, and that heaviness where you're like, I'm useless. I can't do anything. Like, I'm no good to anyone. And even though you are, like, you bring so much. You are smart. This is the weird thing about the brain. During the process of when you're going through it, you fight with one voice that's saying you are capable, you're intelligent, you've got a family, you've got a roof, they go, like, there's that voice that ticks off all the things about you that your friends and you love. Like, if you don't love parts of yourself, you're doing it wrong, because you need to be able to do that. But then there's this other voice that sits there and goes, you ain't shit. Like, you can't do this, you're not capable of doing that, nothing's going to change, you're in a rut, and it's not a rut, it's a hole, and you're getting further down, you're not climbing out of it. And so these two voices just constantly just keep like clashing, until all of a sudden, like, little referee just comes in and goes, all right, separate. Let's just give yourself a bit of a spell and walk through it. So, taking that moment to be able to recharge and stop those two voices fighting, I think. Yeah, because it's exhausting when that's going on in your head. Yeah. So it is. So you're saying you're 17, 18? Mm-hmm. You went to the GP? Yeah. And then... when did you start boxing? Were you boxing at this time? No, so I didn't start boxing until I'm 37 now. 7 years ago. Yeah, it would have been around 30. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. So that's when you first started? Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Freshy. And I had a lot of injuries on the way. So I was working on the Gold Coast for a radio station and working on a Fox show down here in Sydney, and I was kind of like, if there was a stunt to be done or something stupid or an activation to be done, that would be my hand that would get thrown up. And we had Danny Green, who's an Australian boxer, well-known boxer here in Aussie. He came on the show, and I already knew who he was, and I loved him as an athlete. But again, like, my dad loved boxing. I grew up watching Rocky with him. Like, but that was as far as my love for boxing went. Like, it was, loved listening to his stories about Muhammad Ali. That was sort of it. So Danny Green came on. I was like, oh, this is so awesome. I'm gonna throw punches. Like, I had to hit pads with him on the show. So I did it, and like, he goes, oh, you actually went alright. I was quite surprised. I was like, same. Like, never thrown punches before. Just his siblings. Yeah, exactly. Just my brother. Sorry, Jay. And the radio station that I was working for, I didn't realise there was a charity fight which was happening on the Gold Coast, and the promoter had contacted me and said, why don't you just come and fight with us? And at this stage, women's boxing was still kind of only just getting legalised in parts of Australia for women. So I think it was Western Australia was the first one. 7 years ago? Yeah. Well, was it? Yeah. like it was only kind of new. So a lot of the girls in my weight division are like at that stage. I think I was kind of between welterweight, maybe a bit heavier. And so he'd said to me, look, there's no one that we can get you to fight because they're either really heavyweight or they're really lightweight because they're coming across from kickboxing and whatnot. And I was like, okay, cool. And he goes, but you'd be able to fight. And so I like, he just created this like little tiny unknown ego.
You had that crazy look in your eye where he was like, she'd be good in the ring, this one.
Yeah, and the other side. So when we were talking on Brecky Radio, I was like, would you have a fight? I was like, oh, absolutely. Like bravado, because in my head I had this safety net that there was no one that I would fight because I didn't fit in between. So I was like, absolutely. Like we spar the guys at training all the time. And he goes, oh, okay, cool, because I've got a phone call. And it was the promoter who was like coaching it. So he's like, yeah, so you're fighting on the 8th of May. I was like,
he announced it on the radio.
Yes! Yeah. So I had no way out. And I was just like rocking a hard place. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. So yeah, and so charity fight was the first one, but I was actually decided to move to Sydney in between doing it. And I was like, that's cool. Like I'll, fight. But I ended up breaking my ankle 8 weeks out of the fight, like shattering it, plates and screws, the whole kit and caboodle. So I had to postpone the first one, move to Sydney, but I'd made an agreement that I would come up on the next one that they did. So I came down and trained with another fighter, another Aussie fighter, Garth Wood, and Nat Wood, his brother, and trained with them, and then came up to Queensland, and thankfully I won my first fight, because I reckon if I lost I would never have gotten back in the ring. But yeah, won that one, and then just started fighting amateur for a while. So I was obviously back living in New South Wales now, so I made the New South Wales team twice during that time. And actually I made it 3 times. The one in the middle I actually withdrew because of my mental health.
Okay.
And I had 2 years, I had 2 years off boxing during that time because I had to step away from it. Like those 2 years were, I had a really, really close friend of mine pass away during that time, and our friendship, he was obsessed with boxing, but he always wanted to come watch me box and wanted to support my boxing and whatnot. And I felt like because it was a guy, I would look, I don't know, less of a woman if they came and watched me. I didn't really have any friends that I would invite to fights and stuff like that, and so to have someone... You didn't think it fitted the female... Yeah, no, female again, image. Another stereotype, right? So yeah, I pushed away a lot of our friendship, and then so when he passed away, I blamed boxing for it, and not so much I blamed boxing for it, I blamed myself for having boxing as a wedge to let people know every sort of part of me, because I feel like I was a chameleon to everyone, so everyone knew a different sort of version of me, and I didn't want someone to know every sort of version. So I had my boxing friends, and although he loved boxing, I just didn't want him to cross over from my other life. It was really weird. And I guess it's an ego thing, which the same ego, stopped me wanting to have a pill to be happy, and that's when I sort of spiraled. And ego is a big thing. I think in all terms of the mental health, is as much as it's stigma, the responsibility is also on us to be the one to say I'm struggling or I need help, or have that conversation to even listen as well. And if we're not responsible with how we are, then people can't be responsible with how they react to us. And to me that was boxing. I just pushed it away. So I literally, when I found out he passed away, I was actually the worst thing for me. He was an athlete as well, and I had to do a sports show, and it was like a news bulletin sort of sports show, and I had to actually report on his the fact that they weren't going to turn his life support. They were going to turn his life support off.
Oh, man.
So I had to do sports cross where I had to sit there and do all the news bulletins, and the next thing on the auto cue
was this radio or TV?
This was TV. It was online TV, so it was for a Telstra app.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, as the auto cues coming through the news bulletin, I had to sit there and read it, and it was literally and then they went to an interview grab of another fighter who he was very close friends with, basically saying they decided to turn the life support off. So I had to read that and then drive to training, and as I was driving to training, on the radio came that he passed away, and I literally sat out the front of my boxing gym and just messaged my trainer and said I was stuck in a meeting at work, but I literally physically couldn't move. Like, I was in my car for 2 hours out the front of my boxing gym, having just reported on my friend passing away, and like that's how I found out about him passing, and I had to sit there and be like,
oh my god.
So on today's news, so that was really traumatic for me, and that was something that took me so long to recover from. And yeah, so it's
such a public way.
Yeah, and it was to me that was. I think I still really battle with that situation. Like, I feel like I've got a lump in my throat again already. But like as I said, it was kind of, boxing was our conversation piece, and so it was too much for me to be around, and I hated myself for it, and I hated that part of my life. So I just walked away from it. I just couldn't physically be there. And again, at this stage, people didn't realise the struggle that I was going through. A lot of people didn't realise I was even friends with this really close friend of mine. And I just sort of, again, hid all of that battle on top of the other head battles that I was having. And just, again, as I said, I just didn't want to take a pill to be happy. So I fought all of that.
It's a hard thing to get. It is a big ego thing. You're like,
it's huge.
I have to take this to be happy.
Yeah.
And you're like,
but they don't.
Yeah, you're like, what? How is that life? Do you know what I mean? How can you not, craft your own lifestyle that's going to give you happiness? Why do you have to take the pill? Like, I struggled with that so bad as well.
I think I still struggle with it.
Yeah. Me too actually. I took, like, I'm on, you take one a day.
Yeah.
And like, even some days that I took it, I was like, what am I doing?
It's as soon as you pop, like, the capsule of it, and you're like,
still doing this. You have the sense of like, I still haven't figured this out.
Yeah.
So it's a weird, but like, I've got, because I've had so many ups and downs with, going on and off them as well.
Yeah.
To the point where it's like, you just need to look at it and be like, stop.
Yeah.
Getting off them.
Yeah. Well, but the thing is like, I think there's education now about it, but at the time there was none for me in terms of, if you stop taking these, it's like, you have no idea what it's going to do to your brain. Like, you've been putting a chemical into your brain daily at a timed period, which allows your brain to act accordingly in a safe space for you in what we've seen. If you stop taking that, your brain's going to be like, where the fuck are the chemicals? Nah, well, okay, now I don't know what to do. And it's just like literally a person falling down when they chase the cheese wheel down the hill, that's equivalent to what your brain does. It's just a cluster of shit. And it's so dangerous.
Yeah, especially at bad timing as well.
Yeah, exactly.
I stopped taking them at bad timing. Where, like, there wasn't, things in my life weren't very structured.
Yes.
So it's like, it's such a bad time to go off them.
Yeah. I don't think and I think because, again, there's so much chat about people going, but have you tried CBD oil and melatonin and maybe just like microdosing some like natural substances, because that will make you feel better, and then you don't have to take antidepressants. And you're like,
yeah, if only it was that easy.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm so happy that you don't understand why I need to take it. Like, I'm so grateful that that's your perception that that's what would fix me, because that means you don't experience what we experience, right? And so you have to have a level of understanding and joy that they don't experience, but at the same time, you're imagining just putting just a cheeky one on their chin.
Because I've some people around me that just don't get it.
Yeah.
Just don't.
Yeah. And
it's one of those things where you're like, it's a hard one to come to grips with.
Yeah.
For yourself. So it is.
Well, the other thing I struggle with, I was just like, okay, well, I'm taking all this stuff now, so what is my, like, I struggle with what is my IP. We talk about IP all the time in terms of, your intellectual property, who you are, what, if someone was to explain what your personality type was, like, okay, well, I now take all these different medications, so this medication changes this part of me. This one, if I don't want to have the extreme highs and lows, I need to take a tablet that now kind of brings them closer together, so it's going to mute me a bit. So I'm like, okay, well, so now is this my personality? Like, who am I if I don't take all of these things? And now I have to, agree to take stuff to balance me out so that I'm not dangerous to myself, or, I'm not sad all the time, and I'm not hurting all the time, or I'm not confused so I have to take it. But now I'm not the person who I was designed to be. Like it probably sounds like it's like one of those things that like I'm an insomniac, so at night time I'm like, oh, so who am I?
Yeah. I know. What do I do with myself?
Yeah. But
it's it's just one of those things I don't think you'll ever figure it out.
No.
You just gotta
and that's fine. Like
enjoy it.
Yeah. So you just gotta roll with the punches, as they say. But
try not to have too much expectations for it.
Yeah. And I was kind of the same with you. I think when you talk about how you sort of made yours quite public so you could reach at the same time, like I made a decision to try and take my life, and I used the word try. I failed, and I probably shouldn't use the word failed. I succeeded in staying alive would probably be the better way to put it.
You're still here.
Yeah, I'm still here.
I'm very happy to be sitting outside
on our floor. It was probably the first time that I sort of got a bit more understanding about what was going on, because I hadn't probably learned to ask the right questions yet and whatnot, but my story ended up on the back page of the Daily Telegraph without it, which is the newspaper here in Sydney, Australia, and I at that stage wasn't ready to tell anyone, so only a close 5 people knew about it at the time.
Do you mind if I rewind it just a little
bit?
Just so people know why it was a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, why your story made the back papers.
So I worked in the media. I still work in media. Mostly, I was going to stop saying I'm getting annoyed at myself. I worked in rugby league. So through TV, through radio, and I was also at the time working for the New South Wales Rugby League for the State of Origin, which is a big game over here in Australia. And so I was kind of, sounds wanky, but I was known.
You're in the public eye.
Within that space. Yeah,
because it's obviously it's a huge sport here.
Yeah.
And especially the Origin gets huge attention.
Yes, massive. I hope it makes it to Ireland. Is it big in Ireland? Do people watch it in Ireland?
League?
Yeah.
No.
What, even Origin?
No.
Because like in some countries you hear that like America might watch it and stuff like that. So never.
Maybe it does. I've never watched it.
Not in country Ireland.
No, we like the AFL. The AFL will be a bit more.
Well, because it's like Gaelic football, isn't it?
Well, we have a lot of players, Gaelic football players that come over and play over here. So that's a lot more. That used to be played on one of the Irish channels.
Right. Okay.
TG Catter.
Oh, there we go.
You put it on. It was and it was back in the day when the hits were like. They'd show the highlight reels of the hits, and it was literally like wrestling. Lads just clotheslining each other and everything. It was just mental.
Wait, are you talking about rugby league or AFL?
AFL.
AFL, okay. Yeah, you don't see that as much anymore, hey?
No. I remember watching it over here, and I was like, wow, it's not as bad as it used to be.
Very cuddly.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of jersey tugging, basically. They've taken a lot of fun. Well, I shouldn't say they're taking all the fun out of the game, they're taking the violence out of the game, which makes it better and more family friendly.
Less concussions.
Exactly, which is better mental health for all. So that's kind of, I guess, how it ended up on the back page. So
so you were a reporter for.
I was a mix of, what was I doing at the time? I think I was still mostly with the Telstra, which was like an online NRL.com, and was doing some commentary sort of bits and pieces along the way. And then I attempted to take my life between Origin 2 and 3, and sounds really horrible, but I'd been planning it for close to 6 months. Like, that was just how far out. I was just like, okay, can't do this anymore. Was very overwhelmed with how everything was going. I'd stupidly stopped taking my medication because the medication was making me feel really ill. I was on, as I found out, the wrong medication at the time and was incorrectly diagnosed. And so I just, was like, I don't want people to remember me as this more, like, just always depressed, always sad. Like, I was someone who always, dotted my I's, crossed my T's, did all the things that I need to do above and beyond, and I was the happy one, and all of a sudden I was just complete opposite of all of that. And I remember I used to play, there was a song, and it was written by, like, it was a girl that was, like, I think on Australian Idol or something like that, and it was called Please Don't. Are you breaking my furniture again?
I'm just gonna sit up a bit.
It's fine. It's totally fine. Yeah, I just remember it was a song. I think she... Just a side note, I removed my dining room table from my unit so I could put a bike in here so I could train.
It's
so
good. The bike. It was a good swap, I think.
Yeah. I heard it. Anyway, so the song was basically, I think she'd written it because she'd lost a friend to suicide. So it was a song basically saying, please don't. And every time I was really close to just going, fuck it, I'm doing it now, I would put the song on, and it was as if I was singing it back to myself, going, please don't do this. Like, please don't hurt your friends. Please don't hurt your family. Please, just don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. And it'd be my way of trying to talk myself out of it. And then, as I said, it just got to a point where that song wouldn't even work for me anymore. Like, it wasn't enough. I felt like thinking that I had to stay just so that I didn't hurt my friends and family wasn't enough. Like, I was like, once my friends and family know how much I'm struggling and hurting, they will understand, like, that I'm not hurting anymore. Like, because if we talk about someone who has cancer and they pass away, we're like, oh, at least they're not hurting anymore. Like, we think about it that way, where we don't think about it when it comes to mental health. Like, we don't go, at least they're not struggling and hurting, like, because there's so many things that you can do to help. Like, we can't cure cancer at the moment, but we can help make it manageable and livable. And same with mental health. There are ways that we can make it manageable and livable. And unless you talk about how bad you are, they're not going to be able to help manage that and manage your expectations of it. And again, at the time, I'd actually had some really bad experiences where I tried to reach out. I went and saw a psychiatrist, which at that stage the mental health plan wasn't in place. So here in Australia, there's you can actually go to your GP and you can get 10 sessions with a psychologist.
Yeah.
And they're free, and it's all part of our Medicare system. So there's some really great opportunities now if you're feeling confused, or if you're sort of in that period where you haven't been feeling well for, say, 2 weeks or whatnot. You can speak to your GP and find someone to have a counselling session with and whatnot. And at this stage, that didn't exist. So for them, they wanted to put me. They did a questionnaire. I went into the GP and they did a questionnaire. And I basically ranked. It was like 1 of 5. How do you feel about this question? And every question was like 5, 5, 5, 5. Like, I went in screaming for help because I was just like, fuck this. Even this stupid song's not working for me anymore. I don't want to take pills because I shouldn't have to take a pill to be happy. Like, help me, help me. Don't let me go home. And she sat there. The doctor sat there and was just like, well, you've ranked really high, so that qualifies you for this Black Dog Institute to get some help and to get some free counselling. And I was just like, amazing. Can they see me today? Like, I'm screaming for help, and I literally use the words, I need to see someone today. Do not let me leave. And she's like, she gets on the phone, she rings, she's like, I'm really sorry they can't fit you in for 2 weeks. And the only other option is if you see a psychiatrist, and that's going to cost you like $500 per session.
So expensive.
Yeah, and living in Sydney, I don't know how it's comparable to somewhere like with Ireland. It's fucking expensive.
Oh no, it's
it's so expensive.
Crazy,
like $500 is like, for where I was at, that was pretty much my weekly wage. Like, and so I kind of reached out at the time and went to this psychiatrist. I was like, okay, you know what, you've just got to commit your fee and pay for it. You want to be here. You want to be here for your family and whatnot. And I remember this psychiatrist was like, okay, so what do you do for work? And it was just like, oh, I work in media and sport. And he's just like, oh, so should I know who you are? I was like, what? Is that relevant? Like, I don't know. No, my name's Renee. I told you who I am, and that's what I do for work. I'm here to get help. And he's just like, oh, no, I don't know anyone that works in rugby league, so I don't know who you are. And so I just felt so small, like, and I'm there going, oh my God, I'm coming to help. I get help, and you're here just going.
And I've just dropped $500 to be here.
Yeah. So that was my real, and I stress to a lot of people and anyone who's listening to this, going to these appointments, and I think it's amazing, as I said, with that sort of 10 GP session or 6 or whatever you get. It's like dating. So you might not find the best person to speak to in that first experience. You want to be able to find someone that both of you can open up to and have those conversations with, so that, you know, like how you and I are chatting, it's easy, it allows you an opportunity to open up.
Well, I did buy you a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah, that helped.
I think that definitely warmed you up.
Led with a whiskey. Smart. But yeah, you can't walk into every doctor's surgery with a bottle of whiskey.
No, it's probably wouldn't be the best first impression in a way.
I'd be down with it. But yeah, so I guess I just stress it, like it's a trial process. As I said, it's like dating, and it took me until I was put into hospital to be able to find someone where I went, so I've just got to keep trying people until you get it. But because I was in such a huge amount of, like, I was at the brink of despair by the time I got to this really shitty situation. I didn't think I had anything left.
How old were you today?
I was 31. I think it was 2015. Yeah. Maths is beyond me right now. But it was 2015 June.
And this was this just kind of a combination of still not understanding it in your own head?
Yeah.
To the point where it just got just overwhelmed.
Yeah, truly, like massively overwhelmed. I felt really fraudulent because I was already working for a mental health group at the time, and I was trying to talk about mental health, but I wasn't being honest about my own. So I felt really bad, like guilt around that. The death of my friend. Just the loss of joy in absolutely everything, the identity crisis I was having because I was like, who am I with all these different pills? It was just such a heavy combination of stuff that I shouldn't have had to have dealt with on my own. I should have been responsible and spoken and asked for help. And I spoke about breaking my leg before when it was in a cast and I was on crutches. Like, I broke my leg and went to the hospital and said, can you fix me? Can you help fix me? And they put me in a cast and gave me crutches to let my body heal through that first period. And then after that, the physio then helped me go from crutches and move into another space where I was able to walk on it and sort of move forward and let it heal again and better it. And then during that time, like, if I needed someone to drive, I'd be like, hey, would you mind driving me today because I can't drive myself? Or someone would look at me and go, hey, do you want me to grab the door for you because you have your hands full, so let me help you with that. Because it's such a physical thing that people can see and a physical thing that you can see, you can make sense of how to make yourself feel better and who you need to speak to make you feel better. But with mental illness and mental health, we don't see it. So
the hard part as well is you have to be rational.
Yeah.
Do you know, when you break your leg, you can look at it rationally and be like, oh, my leg is broken.
Yeah.
But when the problem's with your head, it's taken away that rational part of your brain.
Yeah.
So, you can't actually make that decision to say, this is what rationally needs to be done here. I need to look for help because you don't, because it's your brain that's been affected. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
100%. I think
so it's very hard.
It is, but again, as I said, it's a responsibility.
Yeah.
So I think out of that sense of responsibility, although like within that one moment you might not feel like you are, but I've created this amazing network of friends that I have that, because I've been responsible in other times when I've told them that I'm struggling or I need help, or I've even been responsible in helping educate them what signs are for me when I'm struggling, that when I do show them and I lose that part of my brain that allows me to be rational and ask for help, they know that they can help step in.
Yeah.
So they might be like, hey Guts, we haven't heard from you in a while, like, are you okay? Or they'll just come over, or they'll find different ways to engage and speak with me or to help me. So whether it's, just checking in, do you need anything, like, would you like me to cook you dinner, or, just really simple things that they now outreach for, because I've used my responsibility to help educate them on what I also need as well. And by doing that, I also know their signs as well too, and like it's a back and forward thing with all of our sort of mates. So I'm really lucky in that, and I know a lot of people probably, because they haven't created that network amongst themselves, they might not have that opportunity. But I just, that to me was one of the most important things, because if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have been here. And I'm so grateful for the people that are around me that have created that sort of network that I can rely on, and not like they're still my middleman. They're not. I don't want them to fix me, but they'll be the middleman that helps me get through that storm cloud that I've got that day, or even just taking me to making me go to the GP to then sort of reach out and talk again and sort of regather my thoughts that way and give, take a bit of weight off the shoulder and sort of go again. But
yeah, so you were saying it was in between the Origin games.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, I don't want me to
No, go
think about it. I'm just trying to think of the timeline and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez, it's crazy. It's crazy to think your head can get into that space.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. And we were sort of away in Melbourne for the second one, and I remember just hitting a really big hole when I was down there. And a friend of mine was down in Melbourne at the time, and I ended up going and staying with them one of the nights because I was just I was at the brink, and I was I can't do it here because it'll be too public, and the team won't be able to recover, and my family will never I'll never be forgiven for throwing this shadow over the sport that I was doing. And so I literally reached out to my friend and didn't tell them how bad I was, but I was like, well, I'm either gonna end it here in a hotel room, or I'm gonna fucking try and keep myself going for a couple more days. That was where I was at, and it sounds so horrible to vocalize in that way, but that's where I was at, and that's how much I was thinking about it, because I was like, no, I've planned this. I took all my friends, I took friends out one by one to dinner so that I could and I'd put on a front and make them happy so they remembered that's where I was, and I was buying everyone dinners. I pretty much spent all the last amount of money that I had left, because I want them to have their best experience with me as their lasting memory. And I think you speak to a lot of people who have lost people in suicide or through mental illness, that there's none of them that won't use the words, I thought they were finally good. I thought they were doing well. And I don't know, I can't speak for a lot of people in that realm, but that's what I was doing. Everyone would have gone, I thought she was finally doing really well, because she was happy the last time I saw her. She was so good, and it's just said so much. And so when I came back up to Sydney and came home, it was my mum's birthday at the time, and I just couldn't even fathom the idea of leaving my room. I just locked up in my room, all the curtains drawn.
Meeting family is such a big thing when you're like that as well.
Yeah, and they didn't know that side of me. I mean, they just thought I was a moody little, moody little shit.
But they thought it was probably all looked after because you're on the meds and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't think they even knew the extent of the meds that are on during that time. I still hid that from them. There was hardly anyone that knew that I was on that kind of stuff. Even from the young age that it was, I think that they only learnt about it a lot now. They talk about it so much. So I came home and I just made excuses not to go and see everyone, and then I stupidly but ironically, the best person I could have reached out to, it was a friend of mine who'd broken his arm really badly, and I knew that if I told him something he couldn't get to me. And in my head, I don't know in what part of me went, you ever heard of a phone, Renee? So I think there was a part of me that wanted to be saved. There was still that stupid part, and he reached out to me and he asked me how I'm doing.
I wouldn't say stupid part.
No, so stupid's probably the wrong word, because that's not the language I want to be pushing right now.
Yeah. But that's how your brain was gone to.
Yeah.
So crazy that you can get to that stage.
And it's it scares me to even think that's how and as I said, it wasn't a rash decision for me. It was a built decision. And there was so many stages during that time. I'm now educated with that. I could have stopped that from spiraling so much, and I wish I could shake that old Renee. But I messaged him, and all I just wrote to him was I'm sorry, I love you, take care, base. It was kind of like that, which is
a goodbye kind of.
Which was a massive alarm bell for him. And he was quite a sensitive soul too. He is a sensitive soul. He's a beautiful human, and he picked up on it straight away. And so he messaged the girl that I was living with at the time, and she was away. And then that just spiked all this conversation with different people, and her partner lived with us as well too. And he came and knocked on the door, and he's like, "Oh, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good, I'm fine." Another one of my friends had said, "No, I'm not taking that as an answer." He still turned up at my front door and with an ambulance in tow and grabbed me and took me.
Wow.
So, and then I ended up in psych ward for about 10 days. And was in there for a fair chunk. So that was probably, as I said, the first time that I actually finally spoke to someone and was able to have a little bit more clarity and ask more questions and have more understanding and whatnot. But
because I talked to another guy back home, another athlete. He had a pretty similar story, and he ended up in a psych ward as well. And he said, like, the stereotype couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah.
And that was the place where he started to get the help he needed and the information he needed.
Big time.
Yeah.
Because they sit with you and they ask you questions. They don't rush you out the door in half an hour. Like, you're stuck there for a few days. You know, it's like you're not there by choice. You don't get a choice to leave.
Right.
You're locked in until they deem you fit to go back out into society. So I think it's a beautiful thing, our public health system, that was made possible, because I could have easily been checked out of emergency ward and tried again. You know, because I was so, at that stage, I was so embarrassed that I'd failed, that I didn't want anyone to know. Yeah. And it sounds so, like, again, it's really poor language to use, but I was just so embarrassed, and I was just like, all right, well, no one can know about this. I just need to go back to life as normal. And I knew in the back of my head, I was like, if this happened, I would try again. Like, I would, you know. But yeah, I was just sort of sitting in there, and they force you to stay in there, and they ask you questions, and then they give you time to sort of go away and sort of process it, and you're in your room with no shoelaces, and then they have another session with you.
You've no shoelaces.
No shoelaces. You got to take drawstrings out of your tracksuit pants. Like, we weren't allowed pens or pencils in our room. Like, we could only use that out in, like, the general area. But yeah, everything.
How did you find that?
Confronting. Really, really confronting.
Was it like, fuck, how did I get to this stage?
Yeah.
Where I got my shoelaces taken off.
And also I didn't realise how dangerous, like, my outfits were.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was really confronting. Wow. And especially when I was just like, I just want to leave, because I can't stay in here for this long, because then everyone at work's going to know, like, and everyone's going to find out. And because the arrogance of that I worked in media, I was like, it's going to be known, and it's everyone's, and I'm not going to be ready for it. So I just need to go back. Like, I just need to go back. So I was just so urgent to go back and not heal myself, that I just wanted to, again, pretend that it just didn't even exist. Like, which was so stupid, and so not stupid, uneducated.
Yeah.
So in there, I when I was allowed with the pens, I would write. I was writing a journal, and I think you've got to know me well enough that I just use humour to cover most issues. So I sort of wrote it like that. And when I came out of the hospital, I ended up writing it all on all up on a computer. But like, to me, it was a blog, but it was a private blog. Like, it wasn't a blog that everybody could read and whatnot. And in my head, because I spoke about it with the doctor, I was like, how do I communicate this to people that don't understand? And because they're gonna have mixed emotions as well too. And so, although the 5 friends that sort of got around me that day and got me to the hospital, they knew, and they would come in and visit me while I was there, as well as my family. Outside of that, there were a lot of close people to me that I needed to explain where the hell I'd been for 2 weeks. Like,
do you mind if I ask how was the outfall of that with your family? Like, I can imagine, like, the shock was.
Yeah, I was freaked out. I thought that they'd be really angry with me. They were the opposite. Like, they were so loving, so supportive. They were so shattered. Yeah. That's what their daughter had been going through and not spoken about it.
And they didn't know, and they weren't there to help. Yeah,
and so I think, I've never really gone into detail with them, but I dare say they would have been, I think with anyone when you're in that situation, there's a bit of guilt, like, why didn't I know? Why didn't I reach out? Why didn't I do that? And like, I'm so apologetic for what I put everyone through during that stage, where again, something I could have taken a bit more responsibility for, but I just had no idea. Like, I didn't know. I didn't understand it. I didn't know. So I think it's been something that's helped all of us, and we have a really open line of communication with it now. Like, my parents will check in all the time with me, so like mum and dad, and they're from an age group where that didn't exist.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so
pushing people to be like, actually, no, really, how are you feeling?
Yeah. But like, when I came out, like, and as I said, I shared the blog with people, and one of my friends went, "This is going to help save some other people," and he thought that because I'd written on this link, it was for everyone to see, so he tweeted it.
It was like live or public.
Yeah. So he tweeted it, and he was quite a well-known footballer, and a journalist picked it up, and then I walked into the office, who the office didn't know anything about my situation. It was in the back page of the Daily Telegraph, and it was like, when's Renee Gartner's next fight? She's fighting every day of her life. And I'm walking in just going,
fucking hell. Can you remember? Can you remember when you seen the first paper?
Yeah, the link was sent to me as I was on my way into work, so I saw it when I was in the car park. Like, I opened the link when I got in the car park as I was about to walk in, and I was beside myself, and I was like, I've got to own this. Like, if I don't go in, then I'm going to spiral. And if I go, like, I have to go in and own it. And then because of it, and because of Twitter and Facebook and phone and Instagram, I got flooded with messages of a mix of anger, a mix of them venting how upset they were, like, and how much it traumatized them, a mix of people saying me too, and then the other part saying, well, now that you have worked it out, can you help me? And I was just going, I wasn't ready. Like, that Talladega night scene, like, I didn't know what to do with my hand. Yeah, I wasn't ready for any of it, like, any of it. And
it's not public. It was public.
Like, yeah, it was proper public. And I remember I had to do, the day that it happened, I had to do a media call. So we're at the football stadium, and it was like a captain's run or something along those lines. And so media were about, and I remember one of the journalists, and I can't remember his name, so that's probably a good thing, came up to me and he's like, so, geez, I didn't realise you had mental illness. You sweet now? That must have been freaky for you. Like, it was just so, like, casual and kind of like taking the piss out of me. And I was
everyone reading it must have thought you had publicly, like,
made it,
as in you were ready to talk and you were over it. And so that was the perception. Everyone just went, oh, well, she obviously knew, like, she's written this blog, so therefore it's like public property. And I was like, did you ever talk to the person who
he was I think I just literally wrote, what the fuck have you done?
Hit him in the ring.
Yeah. He's one of my, like, longest serving friends. He didn't know that.
Oh, not him.
He wasn't.
Not him. The reporter that.
Oh, the reporter.
Yeah.
Like, I've never had the conversation with him, to be honest.
Do you mind just coming up to the mic a bit?
Sorry,
we're slouched over
here. We're getting into yoga in a second. I don't think I've ever had the conversation with the journalist, to be honest. And
I suppose it didn't matter at that stage. It was out.
Yeah, it was out, and I don't even remember whether that journalist reached out to speak to. Like, there's a lot that happened in the unfolding of that. That's a blank to me.
I think they'd have fucking rang you first and said,
is it okay to publish?
Is it okay to publish this?
Yeah. But again, I think because, like, if you put something on a blog, that's public property. Like, it's already, you've put it out on the internet, so therefore it's out there. But I didn't understand the setting of my blog to start with. I literally thought you could only read it if I'd given you the link. Yeah. But if he's put the link on Twitter, that means it's open slider as well too. So there's like things I should have put a password on it. There's hindsight's a beautiful thing. Yeah. But at the same time, the positives I've taken out of that, the silver linings I've taken out of that, is that it forced me to have conversations that have now helped me for life. And the conversation that I had helped break a lot of stigma, because a lot of people were like, how do you have depression? Like, why? Like, and you're always happy. So what do you mean? I'm like, well, there's a different side of me that you don't see and I don't show you. And that's my fault because I should, you know, but it's also my business.
Yeah, you don't want to put it out there on social media, or you don't want to pump it out there.
Yeah.
I think it's great to have the conversation once you're educated about it and you can. And while you're going through it, you're not, you know.
I was dead set swimming in a deep end with concrete shoes on. So I was like, but yeah, I think it made a lot of people have a conversation. As I said, it took away a bit of the stigma that I wasn't, you know, an emo person, so therefore I had it. It was, okay, here's someone that's like, I mean, not to compare myself to, you know, actors and whatnot, but like you look at a lot of our big comedians and stars, like Mrs. Doubtfire, why is his name already suddenly gone blank in my brain? I can't believe it's gone blank.
Oh, come on.
Oh, this is going to kill us.
Yeah, it's going to come to me tonight at 2
o'clock. You're like, damn it!
Robert Williams.
Robin Williams. There we go. We got it. It was like him. Like he was the person that entertained us all and wore this mask, but behind closed doors. You know. And I think there's a lot of us that are like that. And although I hated the trauma of it becoming public, and it traumatized me so much that I actually had another episode, which I would call it, where I wasn't well and I ended up having to quit my job and move home with my parents for a bit because I couldn't care for myself. Like I couldn't cope with everything. I didn't know how to.
Yeah, you didn't get a chance to figure it out for yourself.
No, and I couldn't function. So I couldn't, like, what I was going through meant I couldn't work. Like I couldn't work. I couldn't be the best that I could be. I couldn't function, and I had to get cared for by my parents for a little bit. And again, that's what I mean. They're amazing with it and understanding and helping me sort of get through that. And I was so lucky that I had my parents so close to me to be able to do that. But it took them a while to sort of find the right path for me with what I needed to, how much I needed to talk about it, how much I needed to be medicated, how much, other things that I could bring joy back into my life. And, for me it was a positive step was getting back in that ring for the first time after 2 years off, and finding joy back in the pockets of life that I didn't have joy in, and getting myself back to where I am now, where I'm able to talk about things. I'm able to communicate when I'm good and bad. I'm able to go and reach out to my own GP without anyone's help. If I'm sort of not understanding where my head's at different times, and I think if there's a positive out of it, as I said, it's to take your responsibility, to have your safety nets in place, which is my group of friends, or with having conversations with my GP, and knowing that there's options out there, and different pieces like that. Like I've created my own kind of personal toolkit that I use now that I think is imperative to be here.
Do you mind if we talk about that?
Yeah.
What's so coming through it, you moved back with your parents and stuff.
Yeah.
You seeing I've done that as well. As
an adult, you're like, oh.
I know, yeah. It feels like a few steps backwards, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But so were you talking to someone at the time then?
Yes.
Where were you getting all your information, and how did you start unraveling it?
I think so. I worked with the group Livin, which is a mental health facilitator, and they're also a clothing apparel brand company as well too. So I think I was having a lot of conversations within that group at the time, and I also started facilitating again. So I was actually going out to schools and corporates, and I'd found a way to, I guess, tell my story, but also by telling it more, it was helping me learn and process it a little bit more. And although it still puts you in a really vulnerable position to talk about and discuss it, it helped.
Yeah. Well, you didn't really have a choice either.
No.
Everyone knew about it.
Yeah.
So it was like, you might as well get good at talking
about
it,
exactly. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Sick of the conversation.
Yeah. And it went, if I didn't talk about it, it would have just gone against everything I stood for in terms of, being open and honest and all that sort of jazz. So, I had that. I was seeing a counsellor for a bit. I was doing that sort of mental health plan, so I was able to sort of go through, and I was, as I said, mentioned before, it was kind of like dating. So there wasn't always the right one, but I went to a couple of different ones.
So the mental health plan is your 10 sessions, is it?
Yeah, I think you can get up to 20 maybe now.
Okay.
And then even when you get to that stage, if you need to go back, you can go and speak to your GP, and there's opportunities for that to be extended, possibly. So, but then there's also people that you can see where you'll get some back from Medicare as well too. Yeah. So it's not always going to be such a huge out of pocket.
Yeah.
And then I guess the other parts of the toolkits is learning to understand my recharge days, that it's okay to have a recharge day. I used to be really guilty of, everyone talks about no days off, must train, must, move every single day. And you're like, no, you actually don't.
No, that's
you don't
the other
have
end.
to.
That's the other end of the scale.
Yeah, you're like, it's kind of extreme, have a day off.
Yeah.
So learning that it's okay, shut the blinds and have a movie day, or, chill in bed and just text on your phone, or not text, go off tech all day, and or if you want to go for a swim on your own, do that. And you don't have to be around and see people every day, which is something that I thought. And I think the first time you can be comfortable being alone, and not saying that in a lonely manner, but you have to love your own company.
Yeah, you're just okay with the conversations that are going on upstairs.
Yeah, yeah.
You're not looking at it like, what the fuck is going on in your head?
Yeah. It's not like a little raccoon's going off.
It's not. There's not that fight, because you were talking about the voices earlier, fighting. It's when you're sitting down. There's not that fight. Yeah. That's when you're comfortable.
Yeah, big time. And then it just calms, sort of chills out and calms down. But I think it was a big learning process to learn that it was okay to have a recharge day, and I'm very open with it. Like my friends are like, let's do this today. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm having a recharge day. I'm fine. I'm safe. I just need some time, to sort of chill out. And then I think a really big one, because we're all so guilty of it, is if you're in a shitty mood, you tend to listen to music that's the same. So if you're sad, you'll put on here's an Irish one for you, Dermot Kennedy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love me some Dermot. You put that on and you'll be like, oh, it's like equivalent of Adele for anyone who doesn't know it.
Dermot's class.
Yeah, it is class. Just ballsy emotional music, or just sad music that you put on because you feel sad.
Oh,
so
you shed a tear.
Shed a tear. Yeah, exactly. So it's and you kind of feel like, oh, well, I need to listen to sad music so then I can get all my sadness out and whatnot. And so for me, a big thing is when I'm like that, I'm like, right, what's one song that just I love and gets me in the best mood ever, and I'll put that on, and you can already feel a notice. It's not a forced change of emotion, but it's, you already feel a little bit of that, I guess, melancholy comes off sort of the weight on the shoulders.
I heard, I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about how music is pretty much like a drug. Yeah. That it fires off the different, chemicals in your brain that are associated with the happiness and stuff, your endorphins and all that.
Yeah, so if you feed the wrong beast, it's one that's going to be thriving and surviving. So I think it's a really big one, and it's as I said, it sort of changes you from not wanting to leave your bed to actually wanting to put your feet down beside your bed and get up and then make your bed, and then maybe wash that mug that's in your sink, or simple things. So simplifying your task list, and just sort of giving yourself achievable things that you can do.
Yeah, so the boxing must have been a big one for you. Yeah. Setting the goal of getting back in the ring.
It was horrifying. And it was. And that was a massive goal for me. Massive more so because I wanted to be able to show myself that I could turn around and get it.
Were you fighting professional at this stage?
No, so I was amateur all the way up into this. So I had quite a few injuries, which kept preventing me every time there was an actual proper tournament on, a trial. So say we were going through Commonwealth Games trials and Olympic trials and stuff like that, and I just always seemed to get injured doing stupid shit. I think we'd been training all the way through the back end of the year, and we had a bit of a break. I think it was around January, and the aim was to go back into fight camp, and then we had trials coming up, and I went stand-up paddleboarding to go down and see a mate, because it was again a time when my brain was getting a little bit dysfunctional, and I just felt fried and burnt out. And when I'm going down to see a mate in Huskinson, stay with him for the weekend, And then while he's at work, I'm just going to go and hike. And I asked my coach, I was like, can I just have a weekend out of the gym? I said, I want to go and train, but like be outdoors and sort of do it where it's a little bit more, it's not 4 walls and a boxing dream. So anyway, I went stand-up paddleboarding and ended up dislocating my kneecap, chipping the back of the bone and bruising the bones.
Paddleboarding?
Yeah.
Did you fall off the shallows?
Yeah.
Oh.
So I ended up in a knee brace and lost...
The most placid exercise you can do, paddleboarding.
I will find the most placid thing to do and find the most horrific injury that I can get out of it. Like, yeah.
Ouch.
So yeah, I ended up in a brace for ages, and so I missed quite a few of the tournaments, and finally went back, and I was training while I had the brace. I was either sitting down, hitting a bag, and because I was just like so determined to come out of it fit still, and because I wanted to fight. Like, to me, it was like, I need to get back in to prove to myself that this is my way up. Like, this is, you know, no one knew how much of a battle that was to me and how much of an achievement it was for me to be able to flip something that I had felt like it almost destroyed me prior to get back in. So while we were training, he's just like, look, have you ever thought about, you know, going pro? There's a few chats going around, and they've approached me whether you'd be interested in fighting this girl from AFL. I was like, oh, I kind of don't know if I want my first fight back to be that much of a public stage. Like, you know, I feel like I still need to get a bit of ring rust out. And my coach was amazing. Like, he's just like, you got to back yourself. Like, you know, you're capable of doing this. We're going to train you. And he goes, and if you lose, you lose. He goes, who gives a fuck? And I'm like, me. Yeah, but I think the training around it, and it also gave the mental health chat, I guess, another wind again, because that was my story, and everyone wants a journey. You know, it's like any person you see on a singing or a talent show, it's just like, look at this person singing, but did you know about their backstory?
Pet squirrel died when they were 11 and traumatized to the kids.
Exactly. So my pet squirrel was also a big story. So it kind of gave that legs again. It refueled that fire, and all those articles came out, and every interview and everything was about, oh, it's about your fight, you know, inside and outside the ring. I was like, this has been done, but if it gets done again and it saves someone else or creates another conversation, then fuck it. Like, it was just something that I now have to do. Not have to do, but it's now something I want to do, because I understand it, like, making myself uncomfortable is going to make someone else more comfortable. So, you know, it's part of my story, and I can't shy away from it. And if that's going to keep going, then so be it. But I think, I knew through that whole journey, like, I was constantly reminded that getting back in for this pro fight, the more I trained, I noticed the difference between, I wasn't allowing myself to become obsessed and hide behind boxing. So I wasn't like telling friends I can't hang out because I've got to train, or I can't have a drink because I've got to train, which was where I used to hide when my mental health was really bad. Where this time around I was like, I've got training, but I'll come and hang out, I just can't, you know, drink. And so I had a lot more balance this time around, which was like, for me, it was awesome to be able to see how much growth I'd had. And then unfortunately that, you know, the fight didn't go the way I wanted it to. And I also got injured the week of as well too, which meant that I had to take time off after the fight. Like, it didn't hinder me within it. I subluxed my shoulder and had bulging discs in my neck the week of the fight. So I had injections, which was fine, but it meant after the fight I just needed to have a bit of a spell.
What did you get, cortisol and stuff?
Cortisone straight in, which was lovely.
Just numb everything.
Yeah, pretty much. So I'd subluxed it, so it just kept popping out, but it had pinched nerves up my neck as well as bulging discs. So I'd lost feeling, like, down my thumb, which I still get kind of a little bit of weird pins and needles from. And just a lot of pain. But your adrenaline when you go into the ring is just beyond anything, and you don't feel it. It didn't, like, as I said, it didn't hinder me at any way, mentally or physically. It was what it was, and you know, you sort of get on with it. And so when that fight finished, I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to rehab the shoulder and neck, get back into it, and then get back fighting again so I could get some sort of momentum. And then I was about to get back in a fight camp, so I'd rehab the shoulder, and then COVID hit, and we got locked up, and I decided to walk and run more because I was like determined, no, we're only going to be locked up for 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, I ended up having stress fractures in my leg from the plates and screws that I'd hurt 8 years prior. So yeah, I had to rehab 2 injuries through that first lockdown, which was pretty much 12 months, and ready to go again, started training again, as I said, like those injuries during lockdown sort of brought a whole nother wealth of mental health sort of education and trial and error. And now...
Yeah, because that must have been a big coping mechanism for you as you're
training.
Yeah,
huge.
Big part of your routine.
Yeah, and same, being around friends and family and those conversations and all that as well too, so it was kind of like all that got taken away again. And
it's a shame.
Yeah, satirical humour helps a lot. Through all those sort of situations, but yeah, now it's...
if you don't laugh, you cry.
Exactly. A lot. And it's totally fine to cry. I find sitting in the bottom of the shower is the perfect place to do it. Yeah. So just let it all out.
Empty bottle of Jameson whiskey beside you. I'm only joking.
I got you to blame for that, yeah.
Yeah, it is. Like, bloody hell, I need a good cry sometimes as well.
Yeah.
Like, literally, sometimes, if I have a couple of weeks of being like, I know there's something happening here.
Yeah.
But you just can't put your finger on it.
Yeah.
When it comes out and you cry, you're just like, I'm almost happy. I'm like, God, I needed that.
Yeah.
I needed to deal with that.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I got the emotions out there.
Well, you have to, like, and I say it to my friends all the time because I was just like, they'll ask me, and I'm super honest about it now. They're like, how are you? And I was like, cool, I just sat in the bottom of the shower for an hour and cried. They're like, oh my God, are you okay? Are you okay? And I was like, no, I needed it. I said, I don't know how much, why it came out so much, but obviously I was, bottling bits and pieces along the way, and I said, and it just all came out in one go, and when it comes out, I just let it all go. Like, I don't sit there and go, you shouldn't be crying, but that happened 2 months ago, and whatever. You just go, literally the term, like, fuck it.
It's great.
Let it go.
Because you realise what you're crying about. So it's like, that's one of your triggers. That's one of your things that bothers you. So it's just the emotional learning of that. Like.
Yeah. And then you just, and then you go and pour yourself a whiskey and sit in the lounge and you just have a good night in.
I think I've cried more since my early 20s. Probably.
Because you've learned. You've got emotional growth.
Yeah, that too, yeah. And just, dealing with a lot of the mental health stuff on your own is so, like that. I was years, just didn't figure it out and didn't know what it was. And like, just random tears.
Yeah.
And like, going home from nights out with my mates and like, shooting off early and just crying on the way home, but like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you're like, I was just having a really good time, and now I'm like, this, or I felt weird while I was at the pub, and now I'm like this.
Yeah, I used to get like overwhelmed socially and stuff. Yeah. Because I put so much pressure on myself to be in good form and trying to. I always want to be having a laugh with people, and I always wanted that side of me to be out all the time. Yeah. So I put so much pressure on myself, going like on nights out and stuff. Yeah. To the point where I just have to leave. I'd like.
Burnt yourself out.
Yeah. I'd end up locking myself. I'd end up going into the bathroom, like literally lock myself. Well, not you normally lock yourself in the bathroom, but I'd go into the bathroom, and I'd just be like sitting there, being like, "Fuck, what is going on?" Yeah. And then go home crying. Yeah, like, it's mad. Yeah. It's crazy. It's just crazy where your head goes when you don't look after it, and when you don't know the information.
I think, and that situation itself, like you've obviously gone out and drank when you were already probably like quite vulnerable already, and alcohol, there's like the saying, like people who drink to drown their emotions need to know that emotions know how to float, and they float really bloody well. So as soon as you add that booze to a day when you're already not feeling great, it breaks down your other layers, and you lose, like, if you think about booze, you lose all of your ability to function any emotion. Like, you're either super hyper happy and you do stupid things, and you'll go and wrestle with your mates that you wouldn't have done, a lot of things you wouldn't have done sober. So your emotions of sadness will also be
boxing skills come out with friends.
I say wrestling like everyone does it when they're drunk. I think I just gave myself up there. But yeah, I just think on those nights, like, we need to have that responsible moment to go, fuck, this probably isn't a good night to have a drink.
Yeah,
Or it's have a drink, but like, don't go ham, because as I said, we're not here to hide. Like, you can't cover it up. It's going to come back and bite you in the ass.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to say, no, I don't want to go out tonight.
Yeah.
It really is, because you just feel the guilt of, I should be going out. This is what everyone else is doing. To actually stay in and just even do nothing, just put on a movie or whatever. It's just so much better than putting the pressure on yourself of going out or putting the mask on.
Yeah. Big
So
time.
it is.
But we live, we learn. So
Yeah, oh yeah. 100%,
we're so wise now.
100%. Yeah, so it looks we're on the verge of going into another lockdown.
Yeah.
How... That's a good reason. Why I started this up was just the need for this conversation, especially during lockdown.
Yeah.
Because it's taken away all the coping mechanisms for people through sport, family, just personal connection. So my heart was out to anyone that is struggling, and anyone's at the stage of their sort of mental health journey where they haven't got the information yet.
Yeah.
So I started this up just to try and have the conversation.
Yep.
And to get a few tips for people.
Yep.
So what would be your top 3 lockdown tips, or if you have more? How wise are you? 2 hours later, number 24.
You're like, can we wrap this up? That's okay. Okay, top 3 tips. Tip 1. Should have come out real hard on that one.
Probably should have gave you the heads up.
Yeah, that would be nice. Maybe a whiskey instead though. So.
Yeah, sorry.
That's
priorities were a bit wrong.
Yeah. If I had 3 tips for COVID.
Well, not even. It doesn't have to be say 3 tips,
but just some sort of
if
tips.
There's any advice you could offer to people that you figured out through your journey, what?
Yeah, it'd be having open communication. So making sure you've still got your communication with your friends and outside world. So just because you're not seeing people physically, which allows some people to sort of go, cool, now I don't have to be in that social situation, so I can withdraw and I can go into my moody sort of ways. That's been something big for me. So whether it's, I have a few mates that we make sure we text every day to just check in and just see where you're at. So if you're having a good or bad, ugly day, and it's honesty is the best policy with that. So that might then lead to a walk or something like that during the day, or to go for a swim. I've also found a hobby which allows, we're so lucky where we are here in Manly in Australia, because our local area that we're locked into is littered with beaches and bushwalks and hiking, and we're unbelievably lucky, which
that has, if you can take a good part of it, people are actually reconnecting with that
big time. I started surfing again, no dislocated knee this time, touch wood. I started free diving because it's given me an opportunity to go and learn a new skill and out in the water, and we have beautiful water awesome. Here, it's amazing. And it's also made me get out of the house. So my house is basically my work office, my gym, my lounge room, my kitchen, my bedroom. So it's like cell block at the moment. So it's been super important for me to be able to go back and connect with nature. And again, here in Australia, our winter has been amazing. It's summer for Ireland. You were pretty stoked when it was raining last week.
Gave a little taste of what we were missing out on last year.
Yeah, we're gonna get that again in a couple of days. But I think a big thing's been connecting with people and also with nature for me. And then making sure I'm still doing the things, I still connect with my GP and still have those discussions and make sure I'm on top of things that I need to be responsible for with my medication and also my communication. And then picking up random new hobbies. So for me, it's been learning about whiskey. So
it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah,
it is fun.
I think it's crazy. You're still walking away educated with something that's totally unrelated to anything that I do work-wise. So
you get more of an appreciation for whiskey as well, which is cool, because there's actually so much work and so much history behind it. So it's cool to see.
Exactly. So I used to do that with wine, but I find you can go through a couple of bottles of wine and you can do that with whiskey too. But I just mean it's kind of it expanded my palate, as they would say. But that's kind of been fun. But what about for you?
A lot of similar stuff.
Yep.
A lot of similar stuff. I've started more free diving as well.
Excellent.
I got all the gear to go spearfishing last year.
Good.
So I've been getting out, doing more of that.
Yep.
Routine is massive. Getting up in the morning and getting out.
Yeah, routine, I should have said that. Yeah.
Down to the beach. Get down and work out in the morning.
Yep.
Is massive. So it is. And then talking to family as much as I can is a big one as well.
Yeah.
Because we can't go home now.
Yeah.
So I'm here 2.5 years and I haven't seen the fam.
Oh.
So that's hard. Yeah, that's really hard.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. So just trying to keep the communication with them and make sure that it's real conversations I'm having with them too.
Yeah.
Just checking in with everyone and checking in with yourself.
Yeah.
With them. You're putting me on the spot here too. Thanks for repaying the favour. So top 3, I definitely go routine.
Yeah.
Is massive. So kind of having a bit of a schedule for yourself.
Yeah.
Routine is massive, and then training wise, schedule with your training is really good because you hold yourself accountable for what you're doing. So I've kind of mapped out my days.
Yep.
Of what I'm doing, and then getting up and out into nature as well is massive. I grew up in the country, like countryside back home, so that is a big thing. Getting on the walks and going out, just having a look at the birds, investigating what's around.
Yeah.
It's funny actually because we're talking nature. There's a bit of bushland in Coogee, where the cliffs are.
Yep.
So I was like, it's like one of those bush rejuvenation areas.
Yes.
So I was like, go in there and see what's animals I can find there or something. And
it's very tiny.
It's tiny, but like you gotta make the most of what you
Yeah.
have. So I went in and I looked around, like went in and I was like, minding, looking at the birds. Turned around the corner and there's some fella bent over squirting a water bottle on his ass, cleaning his ass, and I was like, okay, that's what I wanted to see. So I was like, what was I thinking that this was going to be a nice little nature walk. And I walked around the corner then and I was kind of looking in, I was like, oh yeah, there's definitely like loads of people, like loads of like kids and stuff, just use that as their like huts and stuff.
Yeah.
And as I'm saying that, some kid throws a dildo over the fence. It was connected to a tennis ball, and I looked at him and he was just like, oh, it was on the telephone pole over here, and I was just like, right. I didn't even know what to say to him. So he ran in anyway, and he hear like his friends were like, oh, you got it. So he had obviously climbed up the pole or something.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking, wow, my idea of this nature walk, how I thought it was going to be this little utopia in Coogee. But that was very funny.
Yeah, that's nature in Australia.
Yeah. City. That's your city. That's your city nature.
Yeah.
So yeah, getting getting some fresh air, getting a walk, getting some exercise in is massive. Yeah, exercise is massive for me.
Yeah.
That I don't know. I'm here to get the wisdom off you, Renee.
Yeah, I've dropped it.
That's good. It's thanks a million for the chat.
No, I appreciate it. I think it's awesome, and even to hear some of your story as well too. I think it's great. So
yeah,
we just gotta keep making uncomfortable conversations comfortable, and I think there's a lot of strength in vulnerability for everyone. So we just gotta find our little safe space and little ways to connect the dots, and just keep doing what we're doing.
Unravel everything.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a million for meeting me.
No,
I appreciate.
Thanks for coming to my floor.
I know. Yeah. Thanks for. Being so welcoming and homely.
Yes.
I really appreciate you opening up. Well, not opening up, but just sharing your story.
Yeah.
It's crazy that our minds and our brains can go to that place.
Yeah.
But that we can always pull it back.
Yeah.
And it's so important to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because even though it is so crazy, it's a reality that a lot of people face.
Yeah.
So, it's awesome that we can sit down and have a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I hope that anyone listening can take something from it.
They can take, as I said, they can take anything from it, there's strength and vulnerability, and I think it's really important to be responsible in every capacity. So,
yeah. Alright, beautiful.
Thank you.
Thanks a million for having me.
Thanks a million for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe, rate and review, and we will see you for the next one.